The following is a virtual program by the St. Andrews Development Organization to mark the observance of the 2020 Emancipation celebrations under the theme Reclaiming Our Rights, Promoting a Culture of Excellence.
Welcome, Ryan Charles, President of the St. Andrews Development Organization, here to give some remarks.
A pleasant good evening to all. As we embark on another emancipation journey, amidst these trying times, we celebrate under a theme so fitting and relevant to our time: reclaiming our rights, promoting a culture of excellence. For over 300 years, we have been enslaved as a people, stripped of our dignity, beaten, denied of our fundamental rights to freedom, made to work on plantation and oppressed as a people, stripped of our culture, stripped of our belief, treated as second-class citizens, a people without a voice or vote, and to others, it was okay at the time. The right of theirs, we were at the time a race without hope, a cursed generation. But out of adversity, excellence is bred, strength is generated. We endure torture, the chopping off of our limbs, separation from our loved ones, and other unspeakable acts, yet we persevere, and today is a source of our resilience and also defiance. As humans, we possess certain rights: the right to life and liberty, the right to freedom of expression and opinion, freedom from slavery, rights to justice, education rights were denied. But today, we stand here as an emancipated people, reclaiming our identity and our fundamental human rights that we were robbed of, but must do so in a responsible manner. So, as a people, let's demand that excellence, because we deserve better, considering what we have been through as a people. Thank you.
The Emancipation Act, an act for carrying into effect the provisions of an Act of the Imperial Parliament of Great Britain and Ireland, passed in the 3rd and 4th years of the reign of His present Majesty, King William IV, for the abolition of slavery throughout the British colonies, and to make further provision for the purposes in the said Act mentioned. It is hereby enacted by the above authority that as of August 1st, 1838, all persons held as slaves on the island of Grenada are now and forever free. To the planters, the construct of the Abolition Act is that all slaves shall become absolutely and unconditionally free, and that you have no further claim upon those who were your slaves for any services as apprentices or otherwise. It will remain, therefore, for you to submit with decorum and patience to the law as it stands. To the former slaves, you who have been slaves and lately acting as apprentices are by this decision made absolutely and unconditionally free. I trust you will show your gratitude to that nation which has made such great personal and pecuniary sacrifices to ensure your freedom by your loyalty to you, common monarch, and by the willing and anxious obedience you will pay to the laws of the land. New duties devolve upon you with the new positions you now occupy, and I hope by the steadiness of your conduct and your peaceable demeanor, you will prove that this greatest of all earthly boons has not been unworthily bestowed upon you. You must now entirely depend upon your own industry for your support. You must recollect that you have no person to feed you, no person to clothe you, no person to give you medical assistance if you are ill. You must depend upon your own exertion for all these things. You have no houses or grounds of your own. Those you have heretofore occupied must now be given up to their owners. Your former masters, whose property they are, all belong to him, except your furniture, clothes, and crops you have now in the ground. These you have a right to remove to where you please to go, if you mean to do so. But I trust that his sense of what is so decidedly your own interest will induce him to leave you in the quiet occupation of your grounds and homes. Though he who was your master is no longer so, recollect of what service he may be to you. Do not imagine that because you are now free, you are independent of one another. No class of the community can be independent of the other. All experience has shown how one hangs on the other. Those of you who have been well treated, recollect that it is now in your power to show your gratitude for past kindnesses. Probably you gave great provocation. Show that if they have been in the wrong, that will not now justify your acting improperly. I trust that on my next visit to Grenada, I shall hear that you improved habits of industry, your quiet demeanor, and your increased and increasing wealth will show your obedience to the laws, and that you deserve this great benefit which you now receive.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to give some brief remarks, CEO of Grenada Cultural Foundation, Ms. Sherma Wells. Give a round of applause for Ms. Sherma Wells.
The year is 2020. We're under COVID-19, which has certainly prohibit us from celebrating or commemorating a very, very important day in our lives, that of Emancipation Day. Emancipation Day is the 1st of August. However, we must give credit to SADO for continuing to ensure that celebration, commemoration significantly continued over a very long period of time. And the first Monday in August, which has been declared as the symbolic day for celebrating emancipation, they continue to keep that sacred, if I may use that word. So congratulations to SADO. And in spite of our COVID situation, here we are again. They are putting things in place to ensure that you don't forget it is emancipation. Such an important part of our history. Under the theme, Reclaiming Our Rights, Promoting a Culture of Excellence, they are bringing you this virtual engagement, and I am sure that you will be enlightened even more as to the importance of emancipation. What does emancipation mean to us as a people? We have certainly heard of all the noise out there about Black Lives Matter. And you know, when we think about that, it brings us right back to emancipation and the journey that the Black lives would have processed over 180 odd years, and whether or not we're truly free. And sometimes we reflect on our own situation here in Grenada and take that freedom for granted when others are still struggling to basically enjoy their rights. It's not a privilege, it's a right. Emancipation certainly has been something that has impacted our people as an African people in many different ways. And we often hear and listen to the song from none other than Bob Marley about mental freedom. And we wonder whether or not we are mentally free, because sometimes we are our own enemies where freedom is concerned, because we seem not to, as a people, be able to exist harmoniously and to be able to promote others and to help others along the way. A lot of times people refer to different races in the world, the Chinese, the Indians, why are they so progressive? And then you look at the Black race and they talk about the crab in the barrel syndrome. Was that something that came out of slavery? Or was it something that came out of the oppression of the Europeans on Africa? Think about it. Food for thought. But I tell you what, in Grenada, we are able to ensure that that day is certainly kept intact, and we ensure that we spread the word to the younger generation as well, so that they can understand the importance of that journey, a journey that is continuous. It has never stopped because it's always been challenged. Recently in the United States, John Lewis, one of the final bastions of the civil rights movement, died, and he spoke about good trouble, giving good trouble, and meaning that you can do things without being bad. May he rest in peace, because when we look at the struggles in the United States, we are blessed to know that in Grenada and in the Caribbean, we definitely never had so much struggling to do to really have what is our rights and freedom, emancipation. Let us look back a little bit about emancipation and see how it has evolved and how important it is to our culture, because we talk about reclaiming our culture. And you know something, a lot of people seem to think that our carnival culture in particular, our Saraka culture, yeah, and all the other little varying nuances of our culture within our people came from the Europeans, but that isn't so. And I'll tell you something, there is something that I call a Caribbean carnival, which is different from that pre-Lenten European carnival. It may have evolved, yes, from it, but certainly what we embrace as carnival is a Caribbean carnival that came from our ancestors. And why? Let's just reflect a little bit on carnival in the context of the European, the French, the Catholics. Yeah, they had their Mardi Gras, they had their pre-Lenten festival, and the slaves did their own little thing in their own little commune. And we talk about the jab. Everybody have a different interpretation of the jab. But if you look at that particular caricature out of slavery, you'll understand that it's not unique to Grenada, but we have the most special jab in the world. Because you look at the rest of the region, from Martinique, Guadeloupe, Trinidad, you come down the line, you'll find something that portrays that caricature. But in Grenada, it's very special. It belongs in Grenada. And what does that tell you? Here is this guy, Capital. You know that word if you know the old ye and the old jab. He is a reader in the community. But remember, the slaves weren't supposed to be able to read. So when there is the big Mardi Gras and the big European carnival as you know it, with all the masqueraders and so on, this reader never wanted Massa to know that he can read. So he has to be anonymous. He has to portray something that the Massa would not recognize who he is. And then, here you bring in the camouflage. Here you bring in the blackness. Can you tell a Jab who is that Jab? Can you? Not necessarily, unless you know them very well. And you know, it was all part of that whole experience. But when we hear about Carnival, and I'm not going to get into the whole Jab history thing, but when we hear about Carnival, and we hear about Caribbean Carnival, interestingly, we now celebrate Carnival in August. Was that by design or by accident? Because history tells us on the 1st of August, that very 1838, that very early morning, the slaves waited, they claim, with bated breath, anxiously awaiting for the sunlight, the petit jour, early day, early morn, if you want to call it that, to come out and revel in the streets. Could have been stony streets. I don't know if they had tar in those days. And celebrate their freedom. And history tells us that that is how the Caribbean Carnival evolved from Emancipation Day in August. Obviously, you know, we like to stick with some of our imposed cultural habits. We brought it right back, eventually, to the pre-Lenten period, right back to the European style of carnival. But think about it. If you know the European carnival as it exists today in New Orleans, in Rio, Juve, Jab, do you see those things? No, you don't. Do you see the Veco? Old clothes, pulling old pan behind them? No, you don't. So there's something very unique and special about our carnival. And what is most important, it was the beginning of freedom. So never mistake that. I've been challenged on that on many occasions, but research certainly proves that that is what really transpired. So as you celebrate emancipation, take into consideration how significant and its importance in our lives. Remind yourselves that that freedom also came at a huge cost to our people. A huge cost, both physical, mental, and economic cost. Especially if you consider Haiti today, which has been one of the richest nations in the Caribbean, and the price, the billions of dollars that they paid to France to be able to have their freedom, and still paying a high price for it today. So, celebrate as best as you can, virtually and otherwise. Support the whole aspects of SADO as they bring you a virtual emancipation celebration. And remember, never take our freedom for granted. Thank you.
Welcome on stage, Rainbow Divas from Telescope St. Andrew. It gives me great pleasure in welcoming our feature speaker, none other than Mr. Claude Douglas, lecturer at TAMCC.
Pleasant good afternoon to the viewing public as we celebrate another Rainbow City Festival under the theme Reclaiming Our Rights, Promoting a Culture of Excellence. We are doing so under what has become known as the new normal. Customarily, we would be celebrating our festival in the traditional way, but the COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to have a virtual celebration this year. As I address you this afternoon, please think with me on the theme, which words are explicit in addressing the subjects of rights and excellent cultural promotion. The first part of the theme speaks about reclaiming our rights. What does that mean? The verb reclaim has several meanings. One, to bring back into a condition for cultivation or other use. Two, to recover in a pure or usable form from reuse, discarded articles, etc. And three, to bring back to a preferable manner of living, sound principles, ideas, etc. Based on the theme for the celebration, I've decided to choose the meaning that aligns with the theme, which is bringing into a condition for cultivation or other use. Reclaiming our rights is a logical and necessary action of a free people. We live in an era where rights have become a major issue. Almost every demographic is now clamoring for their human rights, as is quite evident. Human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or other status. Human rights include the right to life, liberty, freedom from slavery and torture, freedom of opinion and expression, the right to work and education, and many more. Everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. The theme speaks about reclaiming our rights. The word reclaim means to take back something that was ours, as was earlier mentioned. I take this to mean that somewhere along the lines we have lost some of our rights, and if so, then those rights that have been lost should be reclaimed. However, we need to specify those rights and ensure that they, particularly our inalienable rights, that means rights inherent in every person and cannot be taken away, are secured and are not trampled underfoot. Citizens should always be vigilant of their rights, all rights, not just political rights, but rights that guarantee meeting our basic needs, such as food, water, clothing, shelter, medical attention, etc. We also have the rights to preserve and promote our culture, and this should be fearlessly guarded. Culture is important to us. It defines our evolutionary identity. Culture helps us understand our ancestral values and gives us the very meaning of life. It also makes us a unique group of people who live in a separate region of the world. When born in a particular society, we grow up by learning our society's culture, and the society shapes our lives to become what we are today. Traditional culture of a community keeps us bonded forever. The importance of preserving cultural heritage lies in the sense of belonging and unity that it offers. Cultural heritage and traditions serve to link us with our ancestors, which is valuable and should not be lost. Culture is defined as the sum of attitudes, customs, and beliefs that distinguishes one group of people from another. Culture is transmitted through language, material objects, rituals, institutions, and the art from one generation to the next. Grenada's culture is a product of the elements and traits inherited from the people who came, beginning with the Amerindians, and thanks to them for their coconut bakes and cassava products, followed by the Europeans, the Spanish, French, and English, all of whom at one time colonized Grenada. The African cultural retentions, such as Shango, Susu, the Work Maroons, Saraka, Wakes, and the PK dance, the Big Drum, Maroon Festival, and Tombstone Feast, to name a few, are still alive and well. It goes without saying that we in Grenada have an excellent culture, a rich culture, which needs to be promoted par excellence. In the past, there has been a lot of talk about promoting our culture, but this has not been transformed into reality. And I do hope that this theme speaks about cultural promotion, or speaking about cultural promotion is not just hoopla. Promoting a culture of excellence requires great effort by every single Grenadian. No one entity, no matter how good its intention, cannot successfully undertake such Herculean task. Like tourism, promoting a culture of excellence is everybody's business, and none should shy away from such wonderful opportunity and awesome responsibility. Everyone has a contribution to make and should make it without being forced to do so. After all, this is our culture, and none other could develop it with excellence as we can and we ought to do. In order to develop a culture of excellence, it means that every aspect of our culture must be transformed without destroying the aesthetic value. There are 7 elements or parts of a single culture, and they include social organization, customs, religion, language, government, economy, and arts. Within this larger culture are subcultures. I take it to mean that the theme is referring to customs and the arts, as is the case in Grenada when we speak about culture. Permit me to broaden our perspective on culture as we address the important issue to include other aspects such as social organization, which I believe is germane to excellent cultural development. For instance, social organizations, which is the system of relationships between persons and among groups with regard to the division of activity and the functional arrangement of mutual obligations within society, must provide a solid foundation on which we can develop an excellent culture. Promoting a culture of excellence must begin with teaching our people to love and appreciate our culture. It is becoming increasingly evident that cultural erasure is occurring at a disturbing rate. Cultural erasure is a gradual removal of various traditions and customs from our society. The process of cultural erasure is gradual, as these practices generally make a slow but noticeable transition from a state of prominence to a rarity in everyday life. To combat this cultural erasure, we must embark on a program of cultural renewal and cultural retention. As the name suggests, cultural renewal is the renewal of aspects of cultural practices and beliefs to a particular society, and cultural tradition is the preservation of our culture by improving certain practices and customs. This will occur when a tradition not only links to a major segment of a society's history, but when it functions as a source of identity and pride. It also works to the tradition's advantage when it is enjoyable and/or entertaining. The teaching of our culture must be done formally and informally. First and foremost, it must be infused in our schools' curriculum as early as the kindergarten, when the mind is most impressionable. The more knowledge acquired by our children about our culture, the greater would be their love and appreciation for it. Such appreciation and love would ultimately lead to its promotion. For instance, oral storytelling, which is telling a story through voice and gestures, and the oral tradition to take many forms, including epic poems, chants, rhymes, songs, and more, should be taught in school. The media has a huge role to play in promoting our culture. The electronic media, particularly the television, because it combines sight and sound, is a lead medium. Television programs aimed at promoting our culture should be a constant feature in our society. The television camera can travel over the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique into the most remote villages and unearth traditional practices and celebrations and present them forcefully and creatively to viewers. There are a number of cultural traditions that are dying slowly, and they need to be resuscitated and developed. The government of Grenada, through its Department of Culture and statutory or state body, the Cultural Foundation, has a largest role to play in the promotion of our culture. Budget allocation for promotional cultural activities must be significant so that much more can be done to create responsivity and engagement. A much larger amount of money should be given to the Cultural Foundation so that it can do much more in promoting our culture than it is doing right now. Both the Department of Culture and the Cultural Foundation must work hand in glove with organizations such as the St. Andrew's Development Organization, that's SADO, the St. Patrick's Organization for Development, SPOD, St. Mark's Organization for Development, the Carriacou Regatta Committee, to name a few, so that the culture can be developed, as I said before, par excellence. As I close, I reference the words. I want to leave you with the words of Pobita. And I quote, "Our culture should be upheld as our heritage. Nothing and no one should be allowed to attack or destroy our cultural traditions. It is always wise to remember that our culture defines our existence and makes us who we are. It should be passed on from generation to generation, like it has been done until now. Our cultural background should never fade into oblivion, and we have to make sure of that. A world without diverse cultures will not be as colorful as it is now. Let us preserve our culture. Let us renew our culture. So in doing so, we will promote our culture with par excellence, and we will defend and guard the rights of those who may prevent such development. I thank you, and you do have a great Emancipation Day.
The St. Andrew Development Organization would like to recognize the following organizations and individuals as part of this year's festivities. We have all been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, and as such, we want to recognize the efforts of these people and organizations that have been on the front line in the fight against this dreaded disease. We are happy to announce our awardees, the St. Andrew branch of the Grenada Union of Teachers, for their efforts in educating our students in these trying times, the Royal Grenada Police Force for ensuring peace throughout the state of emergency, the St. Andrew Bus Association for their role in providing transportation to us all. The St. Andrew Medical District for their role in ensuring we all had access to health services. Farmers Patrick Francis and Gerald Barry for their contribution to food and nutrition security.
For Damien Lapump, Papi Boy, with his version of Bob Marley's Redemption Song. Give it up for Papi Boy.
All pirates, yes, they were by, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop at the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs, these songs of freedom, songs of freedom.
On behalf of the executive and members of SADO, we say thank you to everyone: the Government of Grenada, the Grenada Tourism Authority, Real Value IGA, George F. Huggins, Ms. Sharma Wells, CEO of the Grenada Cultural Foundation, for her remarks, Mr. Ryan Charles, SADO President, our featured speaker, Mr. Claude Douglas, Lecturer at TAMCC, Digicel, Made in Grenada, Boss FM, Mount Zion Studio, Damien Papi Boy Lapump, Decent Production, Miss Lily Alexander, Mr. Keith PQ Mark, Neil and Ramdeen Photography, Doyle Pancho Photography, Badges R Us, Rainbow Divas, Area Code, Danger, Heartless, Donji, and Jelani.